Welcome back to the CEO Lens. I'm Paul Miller, and today we're talking about something almost everyone thinks about this time of the year: New Year resolutions. In the last episode, we explored why the festive season can be incredibly difficult for so many people in South Africa. Loneliness, anxiety, financial pressure. December brings emotional complexity that often goes unseen. January is the emotional flip side. Suddenly there's this rush of expectation, a sense that the new year means a new chapter. It's what psychologists call the fresh start effect. We feel like the old version of us lived in the last year, and the new version begins now. And so we write lists, we set goals, we promise ourselves that this year is the year we'll get healthier, fitter, more balanced, more disciplined, more intentional. But here's the uncomfortable truth. New Year resolutions almost always fail. Not because people don't care, but because we design them in ways almost guaranteed to collapse. And today we're going to unpack why resolutions don't work, and what actually does, and how a new class of medicines, GLP-1s, is fundamentally changing the landscape of weight loss, behaviour, and willpower. This episode is not a medical advice. It's a conversation about science, psychology, and society through the lens of leadership, human behaviour, and what drives performance. So let's get into it. Grab a seat. There's a coffee for you.
Thank you.
If you want some. Anything you need.
You got some notes. I'm going to grab some notes as well, just in case as a reference. Do you mind, or is
Go
that
for it. No,
can you
please.
just have that on
I've
hand?
got this here because I'm dealing with someone smart and knowledgeable, so I've got to up my game.
That's the same reason I'm taking notes.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we're stressing each other. We shouldn't do this.
Don't stress each other. It's going to be easy. You go.
I'm going to stick it there. Guys, I'm so impressed. 10 o'clock on the dot. I'm sorry I was 2 minutes late.
That's
How much
good.
time have you got?
But let's begin with yourself.
Cool.
Just who are you? What are you passionate about?
Are we rolling?
Yeah, we're rolling.
You mean we have been rolling for a while? Guys, I'm Michael, by the way.
Hang on, I'll get would it be okay if I show your picture, or then you can just adjust your hair?
I'm looking at Paul's hair going, that's a perfect haircut, man. That's
Well, we have
Cool.
to compensate if you've got grey hair, right?
Exactly. Paul, who am I? A failed medical doctor. So started out wanting to be, in fact, I've always wanted to be a medical doctor. I think the idea of human flourishing really just
Thriving.
just sparks. And even today, I've got 2 kids. One's a qualified doctor, one's about to qualify. And it's hard. Internship is not easy. And I often get asked this by my kids: if you could do it again, would you still study medicine? And the answer is absolutely. It's opened up doors. It's been an amazing platform. And above all, it's an opportunity to do what we're doing today, Paul. It's just like sharing what we know, but translating the science into a way that people understand. And I think that's particularly why the CEO Lens podcast is just so good, because that's what you're doing. You know.
Yeah, and you've got a lot of focus on longevity and thriving, I've noticed more recently, and not just about health, but about good years, quality years, wellness.
Well, it's a whole health span revolution. You know, it's not so much about lifespan, it's about how well we live. And the gap between lifespan and health span is about 10 years now. So average lifespan, you would know this, Paul, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but is 73. The average health span, years we live free of disease and disability, is 63. So essentially we're dying slowly over 10 years, medically supervised, expensive and painful. And that's not what medicine should be like. As doctors, I mean, I was trained to treat end of life and really extend life for the last 2-3 years, but That's not quality of life. What we really should be doing is taking that health span and saying, okay, how do we move that needle from 63 to 73? What do we need to do to keep us fit and thriving and still doing triathlons at our age as you do? And that's really where medicine for me is. That's the intervention that makes a real difference.
You did a bit of a celebrity journey as well, and you got involved in in shows that spoke about thriving, you know, and living full and living
That's
out
right.
there. I suppose that's all part of it, is it?
It is. I think
it's not just health, but it's the broader experience of life.
Well, it's the aspirational nature of life. It's what could be. And I think a lot of top billing was that. That's really what kind of held us to the brand, is giving South Africans a glimpse of what could be. For a lot of people who would never experience that, would never get to do any of those things, they got to see what we did. And I think that was special. But beyond that, for me, the Hello Doctor show, the Dr Mol show, was all kind of taking what we've been given as a platform and trying to give it back to say, hey guys, this is what's good for you. And again, you said it, human flourishing, human thriving. That for me was really key.
The concept of longevity is taking a very strong focus. And as you say, when you hit 70, everything seems to change. And what you've done from your ages of 40, 50, 60 sets you up for those years.
Exactly.
What's your reflections on that?
Well, I think there are changes in our vasculature, for example, that happen 10 years before we get a bad cholesterol reading.
Okay.
So, and science points to two big changes in our lives. You talked about 70, but at 40, is it 44 and 60 or 40 and 66? I can't remember quite the ages, but there's a significant flick or switch that goes on when things just change and chronicity sets in and disease sets in. And so for me, from a longevity perspective, it's trying to help people understand how to dumb down what we should be doing, because we know we should be exercising and eating well and sleeping well, but why? And in my experience, what's been most helpful is saying, guys, you could be younger. You have a chronological age. You talked about 70. That's how many times you've orbited the sun. That's the candles on your birthday cake. But you also have a biological age, the age of your cells and your systems. That's the true story. And you have agency over your biological age, not your chronological age. So what do we need to do to make ourselves younger? Because if you think about the four horsemen, the chronic diseases that are going to get us, Paul, heart disease, diabetes, neurodegenerative and cancers, those are the four things that are going to claim 80% of our lives. The number one risk factor for all four of those is aging. Not stress, not sleep, not sugar, not hypertension, it's aging. And so if we can slow down our pace of aging by doing certain things, the simple, boring, unsexy stuff, we reduce our risk for those chronic diseases and we improve our health span. So if you had to dumb it down, it comes down to slowing down the pace of aging. Being younger than my chronological age. I mean, you're a great example of that too, you know, and I'm not saying
I don't look 80, do I?
No, you don't. But my point is, you've got two 60-year-olds. One's running marathons and triathlons, the other can't walk upstairs. Same chronological age, vastly different biological ages. We have agency, and I think that's probably the most important.
So I want to pick up on that point, because we just did a podcast with Casey from SADAG, and it was all about December. And December's a time of joy. It's a time of high expectations, families getting together, celebrations. But for many people, it's also a time of contrast, that if you're lonely, you're probably the most lonely in that time. If you're under financial crisis, the finances come under even more, it gets exacerbated. And so therefore, what we were talking about is mental wellness over that time, and saying, just be a little bit kinder to yourself, pace yourself. Understand that December can be a very challenging time, particularly if you're living with depression and anxiety. But what you're talking about is the flip of that, and that is January. And somehow January shows up, and there's this belief that my old self can stay in 2025 and have an aspiration to create a new self in 2026. And this is where people use words like resolutions, or they start to talk about this aspiration of being a more centered self, a healthier self. And in fact, it's quite interesting, because a lot of those things that they're resolved to do are not material, but it's more around me
Yeah.
and being a better version of myself.
Yeah.
What's your sense about that, and why do we do it?
I think the reason why, Paul, is this beautiful little word called hope. Hope is it's like your brain's permission slip to keep going, even when logic says it's never going to happen. We make these amazing resolutions and we know we're not going to live up to that. But hope says there's a chance. I mean, our ancestors, if they gave up after the first failed harvest or the first failed hunt, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Hope says tomorrow is going to be better than today. And so we hope. But there's a challenge in that. The thing with hope is if you, just by believing that something good is going to happen, you trigger a brain reward circuit. That dopamine, that feel-good hormone that we all crave, you trigger that just by hoping, by believing something good is going to happen. And so almost just making the resolution, not doing the work of the resolution, just making the resolution and saying, I'm going to run a marathon and write a book and do all these things, you already get that reward.
Yeah.
Which is almost counterintuitive. So if you, for example, are going to ask me what my New Year's resolutions are, Paul, and I'm going to preempt this so that I don't sound rude, because I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I won't tell you, because as soon as you tell people what your New Year's resolution is, you get the reward. So if I had to say to you, I'm going to do Kona, I'm going to run a triathlon, or I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to lose 10 kilograms, whatever the case is, you slap me on the back and go, Michael, that's amazing, man. Well done. I get my reward. Now, because I've gotten my reward already, my desire to do the hard work of getting that reward is completely diminished because I already got the smarties. I've already got the, So what we should be doing, because hope really is a powerful emotion, is going radio silent. So instead of telling people what we're going to do, it's rather just share the process, not the promise. In other words, I'm not going to lose 10 kilograms. I'm not going to get fit. No, I am going to intermittent fast for 5 days a week, or I'm going to move for 15 minutes a day. That's all I'm going to do. So share the process, not the promise. So you get rewarded for the process.
I want to come to that process piece just now, because I think it's a very important key around success. Versus, so I'm going to read off a couple of the top resolutions. Exercise more, right? You mentioned that. Lose weight, eat healthier, save money, reduce stress, improve mental health, and the last one, spend more time with people who matter. And as I said before, most of these are not material in nature, but it's almost more about agency. You used that word a little bit earlier. In other words, getting control back over my life, and getting control over the outcomes of how I live. I think that's what people are aspiring to do. But here's the interesting thing. Stats says, if you meet your resolutions at the end of December, you're in the top 1% of the
As much as that. As
much
as
1%. If you're still going in April, you're in the top 10%.
Wow.
So
where are you, Paul?
Yeah. So this is it's a fascinating thing. So why do people fail? What is it that why do we not manage to keep the resolutions, keep that pursuit of what we want to be a better version of ourselves?
I think a couple of reasons, Paul. One, I think, is because we rely on a terrible strategy, and that strategy is willpower. We really believe that if we think hard enough and do hard enough, we're going to make it. But how I feel today on the 1st, or let's make it the 2nd of January, is going to be very different from how I feel halfway through January or the beginning of February. So willpower is like your body's battery. It runs out, and it runs out quickly.
And it's probably one of the weakest things to rely upon.
Absolutely, I mean, kids and work and stress. I mean, it's just... So willpower, not a great strategy. What you want is you want systems.
Processes.
Exactly, you said it, processes. Habits. So... do things that don't require willpower, or set up systems that don't require willpower. So if we use that example of I'm going to get fit this year, and that's the other thing, why people don't get the New Year's resolutions, is they're these vague, massive statements. I'm going to get fit, I'm going to get healthy. What does that mean? It's not specific. Your body doesn't, your brain doesn't respond to big ideas like that. It responds to instructions.
It's too vague.
It's way too vague. So instead of saying, I'm going to get fit, buying a new pair of shoes and downloading the latest 3 apps and, renewing your gym membership and kind of going 5 days a week. And that's the 99%, because, week 1, you probably will manage it. Week 2, you might do half of that. Week 3, you're like, I failed. I'm useless. I'm a complete washout. No, you're relying on willpower, not systems. So how do you build in systems? How do you get to be the 1%? For me, it's lower that expectation. Not lower the expectation, I think lower the goal. So in other words, instead of get fit, I'm going to move my body for 10 minutes every day. It's quick. It's too quick to skip. It's too small to fail. And I don't do it perfectly. I just do it consistently. That's the system. And it means my shoes are next to my bed. It means my clothes are actually out the night before. I don't need to go digging around in the dark when my wife is sleeping and I'm trying to out. So you set systems up that make you succeed, that aren't set to fail.
I mean, I love that concept of getting a system around you. I know for myself, when I went on this journey, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. And therefore, I actually got hold of a coach who then wrote up every day what I had to do.
Exactly.
But this concept of putting your clothing out the night before is very powerful.
Yeah.
Because what happens is you get up in the morning and there's no debate. We know what we have to do. Yeah. The clothing's out. We're not going to have a debate now. Are we getting out when we hit the snooze button?
It's not how I feel.
It's not how I feel.
Out of it, man.
Yeah. I'm doing this. This is what we decided last night. It's what we decided last week. We're going ahead with it. So I think the concept of having support and having a system and having a process is super critical. You also mentioned the fact about failure, that it's actually okay to fail.
Yeah.
You're not going to get it 5 out of 5 every week. You might get it 3 out of 5. But consistency is a very powerful ingredient of the success. Now, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, when people say I failed, my initial reaction is, no, you haven't failed. The system has failed you. So you've got an environment around you that doesn't help. I'll use myself as an example. I've got a horrendous sweet tooth. And so if I get to the afternoon and suddenly I have this craving for sugar.
Yeah.
And we've set up a system in our home where there is no sugar, there are no sweets, there's no chocolates. So I've got to scramble if I want to find that. And I'm looking for, eventually, I mean, I don't know if we should go out with this, but I'll find icing sugar in the back of a cupboard somewhere, just like a scoop of icing, because I need this sugar hit. But instead, we've got biltong everywhere, because biltong satiates and it's good for you. And so the system we've built is to try and help dear old Michael with his sweet tooth to beat that. But if there are chocolates all over the place, and you're just setting yourself up for failure. So if you can build systems around you and an environment that helps you attain those goals, that just makes achieving them so much easier. That and I think in some accountability, not a coach. I love that idea you had a coach.
I like that concept of accountability.
Yeah, but someone that you can actually just say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Just check in on me every once in a while.
Or if you're going to go for a run, make sure they're waiting for you at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, that's because that's hard not to say.
Hard not to get there.
Exactly. I didn't feel like it. I didn't want to pitch up, so I left you in the cold. Yeah.
It's interesting, people set resolutions every year, but so do companies. And as you know, I run a company, and as leaders of organizations, we have this strange thing where we behave like people. We set very grand visions, but we don't have any clear processes to get there. We set some very grand strategies, but we don't change any behaviors. And we expect the organization to embrace the vision, embrace the strategy, actually pursue it. But in reality, we do very little to change the behaviors, the processes, and the systems to enable that vision. And so it's not uncommon for what people do, but we also do it as leaders of organizations. We don't understand the importance of not just having a vision, but having a very clear set of steps that we're going to do to achieve it.
Well, it's amazing that you shared that. I know very few leaders who'd be willing to admit what you've just admitted.
Yeah, I didn't say I do it.
No.
The intention's there,
Absolutely. But the point is, you recognize that.
Yeah.
And I think so few leaders do. They're like, hey, guys, there's the goal, chase it.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, a step-by-step approach. This, then that, here's the pathway to get to where you want to get to. And celebrating those wins along the way.
You see, now that I think is very important, because if you set that realistic goal that you described, it's not about I'm going to run 21 Ks, but it's going to run 5 Ks eventually, but I'm going to start with a walk, run, walk. Then you've got something to celebrate along the way, and it gives you a sense of belief that this is possible and I can get there. So I love that idea. But I want to unpack a little bit around this whole new revolution. And we've spoken about willpower, and we're saying, well, willpower doesn't really work here. We've spoken about processes and systems, and we're saying that's what you have to have, and there's something about accountability, showing up, small goals, being willing to accept failure, being willing to try again, and to just keep going with consistency.
Yep.
But here comes a new medication that probably doesn't require all that on the face of it. GLP-1s. It's a revolution, right?
Yeah.
Where you can lose weight. You can maybe achieve that vision of who you want to be, but it's through a medication.
Yeah. It makes it easier. It doesn't hack the system. And I think that's where people misunderstand. So GLP-1s are a medication or medications that mimic a natural hormone that our body produces in the gut when we eat that regulates our appetite. It stems that hunger and reduces cravings. But here's the catch. Our body produces it in minute amounts, and it's fleeting. It's gone in minutes.
Okay.
But what pharmaceuticals have done is they've managed to take that biological mimicked hormone and amplify the signal. So suddenly it's almost 1,000 times what you're getting, and they've extended that. So all of a sudden, the ability to regulate appetite is prolonged, and it's in place for a lot longer than the few seconds that your body gives it to you. So that's what GLP-1s do. And what they do for people is they turn down the food noise. So we might not experience that if this is not something we get bothered with, but that GLP-1 effect, by the way, fleeting in some people with insulin resistance and obesity, it doesn't work. So they don't get that effect. When I say it turns down the noise, people often, they don't realize, but they're thinking about what they're going to eat. They're thinking about what they just had to eat, what they should be eating. It's busy. It kind of consumes their brain.
It's that sugar in the afternoon for Michael Mol.
Exactly. That kind of, I can't work because I've got to, and what GLP-1s do is they just turn that noise down. So all of a sudden, I've got capacity to think about something other than food. Food is no longer the boss of my brain. And so what I often say is GLP-1s don't do the work for you, but they make doing the work.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, it does come down to habits. It comes down to how I'm exercising. It comes down to the right kind of foods to eat. But for the first time, I can think about that because food is not dominating my thoughts.
It's kind of like I'm passionate about cars. And I was thinking of an analogy as you were speaking there. It's almost like power steering in a motor car, right?
That's lovely, yes.
So you still have to direct the car. You still have to turn the wheel. But there's massive assistance there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you turn off the engine on a car, right, and you try and turn that wheel. It's impossible. Turn the engine on, power steering comes on. All of a sudden, it's possible.
Yeah. When people say, having used GLP-1s, I suddenly have control back.
Yeah.
That really is what happens. They suddenly can make the right decisions. It takes away the friction of saying no. You know, it's for some people it's really hard. For me to say no to sugar. What GLP-1 really does is reduce it by about 50%. It makes it easier to say no to the wrong choices. So it's biology. It's not. And I want to. Sorry, Paul, I'm interrupting. I want to stress the fact that this is not magic. It's not cheating. It's biology. It's amplifying a signal that your body already produces and just makes it bigger and larger and longer.
Let's talk about that signal.
Okay.
It actually isn't found in nature, right? You mentioned in humans, but there's this crazy lizard. Do you know the story?
I do. What's it called? The jelly lizard.
Gila monster.
Gila monster, yes. Yeah, venomous little lizard that eats, 3 or 4 times a year?
Yeah.
And they found some sort of analog in its saliva, I think.
Correct.
That became the first GLP-1 analog. I mean, amazing that.
So as you're saying, it's found in nature.
Yeah.
It's present in nature. It's already there.
Yeah. From a lizard to a diabetic drug to the most talked about obesity drug from a lizard.
And that's interesting, right? Because it was a diabetic drug. And this is actually weight loss is a side effect.
Yeah, as is heart protective effects. So what's amazing, what the studies are now showing is that there is a 20% reduction in major cardiovascular events, so stroke and heart attacks. And that effect is experienced without weight loss, which is amazing. So it's not linked to weight loss, it's not linked to reduction in obesity, it's just the benefit of the GLP-1. So phenomenal. And that's the start of what's to come. There's a lot more coming down the drag.
Yeah, so I mean, let's just talk about that then. So then what is the mechanism? Because if it's not directly the axis on the diabetic component, but it's working independent of that.
Yeah.
What is it doing?
Well, I think a lot of it is still unknown. We're figuring it out. So I think there's a strong anti-inflammatory component when it comes to GLP-1s. But probably the key message for those of us who are thinking about GLP-1s from a weight loss perspective, it works centrally. So your brain essentially deals with appetite and hunger in two ways. There's short-term and there's long-term. So long-term, you have a hormone called leptin, which responds to fat stores in your body.
Okay.
So that's kind of the long-term approach. And GLP-1s are more your short-term, I'm hungry now, and that's what kind of, so it's basically the short-term and the long-term effect on the brain, but it's central. And that's key. It, as you said right in the beginning, it starts here. Because when it comes to weight loss or obesity or being overweight, it's biology, it's physiology, it is psychology. It's not a loss of willpower, it's not a lack of self-discipline. So all this shaming that we as medical doctors have done to patients who are overweight, thinking, oh man, you just can't stick to it, that's so wrong and so bad, and it's something we need to kick out of the system. And it's happening because we now realize what's behind someone who battles with their weight.
It's interesting because you look at people like Elon Musk. He admitted to using, I think it was Wegovy. Oprah used it and had substantial weight loss, but actually denied using it. Celebrities often are very quick to admit, I use Botox, I use maybe plastic surgery. GLP-1s, not so much. They don't come out as quickly. And I think you maybe are onto something here where we associate weight loss with almost a bit of willpower, determination, character, and morality. And if you lose weight through a pill, well, somehow you've broken the code in terms of using gutter determination, and you're cheating.
Which is so wrong. Because Paul, as we mentioned earlier, it's biology. It's it's metabolism. It's almost, some people have a 10-kilogram backpack on their back before they start climbing the hill. And what GLP-1s do is really, it takes it off. So it doesn't. It's not a cheat. It levels the playing field.
So maybe for some people, their weight is actually not about determination or discipline. It may be about their metabolism. It may be about their concomitant diseases, and it may be about their body components and how they're structured. And for those who are fortunate to be able to lose weight by other means, this maybe, as you rightly said, almost democratizes and gives equal access to weight loss.
I mean, two people eat the same slice of chocolate cake. One burns it off like jet fuel. The other stores it like retirement savings.
Why is that?
We're different. Different genetics, different muscle mass, different hormones, different stage of life. We are so unique as individuals. And so to shame someone for using GLP-1s makes no sense at all. We would never look at someone with glasses and shame them for wearing spectacles, or shame someone for wearing a hearing aid, or for using an inhaler. Those are medical treatments and medical devices that assist individuals that need that assistance. And GLP-1 is exactly the same.
And maybe we also associate weight loss with vanity, with being caught up in how we appear and how we look. But the reality is, weight is associated with a lot of diseases.
Obesity has a close link to 10 out of 13 cancers, just being obese. I mean, it's not a vanity thing, it's a health thing, it's a disease thing. If I've got diabetes, I need to treat my diabetes. If I have appendicitis, I need to treat that. So it's the same way with obesity. Let's treat it like the disease that it is.
You spoke in the beginning about, was it 5 main causes for death?
Yeah, 4. Yes, 4. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
4 horsemen. And I suppose weight loss underpins many of those. I mean, you mentioned cancer. There's talk about that as well. So if you control weight, you can control a lot of those downstream complications that are potentially waiting for you.
Absolutely. And we talked about it earlier. There's an inflammatory component to obesity that is just that the basis of all disease is inflammatory. And so, I think obesity plays a huge role there.
So what do GLPs do for us, and what do they not do for us?
Well, I think we've kind of gone into quite a bit of detail of what they do in terms of reducing cravings and reducing hunger, and they do that naturally. Your body does that anyway. It's just amplified. What they don't do, and I'm so glad you asked that question, Paul, is they don't do training for us. They don't improve the kind of foods that we eat. They don't get our habits in order. They are not
like sleep.
Like sleep. They're not. What's the word I'm looking for? They're not the hack. They're helping us to reset the baseline. So it's an opportunity to. They don't do the work for us. They allow us to do the work better. If that makes sense. So that's really important. It's a starting point. It's not a quick fix.
So if they're not improving our sleep, if they're not improving our strength training, if they're not improving the choice of foods we take, if they're not improving our mindfulness, our wellness, then let's talk about how do you take a GLP-1? And we all know maybe it's a weekly injection, maybe it's an oral medication, but how do you take it? What should we be thinking about when we start to dose a GLP-1? Yeah. What are the things we should be considering? Because if it's not just about the chemical, it's also about our behavior.
Absolutely.
What is that?
And that's key. So a couple of things around that, Paul. One, it's a medical intervention and therefore requires medical oversight. So please do not get your GLP-1 off the web or off some dodgy
It's possible,
site.
right?
It's very possible. I mean, it's the black market for GLP-1s is rife. Don't do that. It requires medical oversight. It is a treatment. And a treatment always comes with certain side effects. So be aware, there's going to be nausea, there might be constipation, there might be fatigue. And understand that often gets dealt with over time, but they're there. And probably the biggest concern we have with GLP-1s at the moment is loss of muscle mass. And I'll get to what we should do when we're taking GLP-1s as well. But muscle mass, if we lose on average around 25% of our weight, someone taking a GLP-1 for 12 months, around 25% of weight loss.
Which is a lot.
It's significant.
Yeah.
I mean, that's on a level of bariatric surgery. That's
Correct.
the best we can do right now. And
reducing the size of your stomach.
Exactly. So we can do that with injections, weekly injections. But of that weight loss, around 30% is muscle mass if you are not exercising and doing resistance training. Now think about muscle mass from a longevity perspective. We talked about longevity earlier and health span. Muscle is your metabolic longevity. Muscle is your body armor. It's the thing that keeps your metabolism going. It keeps you independent. You want muscle. And particularly for the woman listening to this podcast, please lift heavy, build your muscles. Ignore the pink weights. Pick up heavy. And when I say heavy, pick up a weight that you can only pick up 8 or 10 to 12 times in your first rep, 8 to 10 on the second, and 6 to 8 on the third. That's how heavy. And ladies, you are not going to bulk up like a She-Hulk. You're not going to get hair on your top lip. Please build muscle. So muscle is key. And that's probably the most important aspect of when we take a GLP-1 is you've got to have resistance training, strength training built into your system. Please, you want to maintain that muscle mass. That's the first thing. Protein, your diet, you've got to increase your protein. Protein builds muscle. Without muscle, you're going to lose that muscle mass, so you've got to have protein. We mentioned having a medical oversight.
How do you build protein? And what should you be taking on board? Are you upping your meat? Are you implementing? What are you doing?
Whatever works for you. Often people find having an increased level of protein is difficult. In that case, get a whey protein shake. Find some way to get your protein, particularly if you're vegetarian or vegan. Very important that you do that. I don't know if you can do whey protein as vegan. It's an area I don't know enough about. But up your protein. Just do more than you would normally do. And I think when it comes to eating, it's interesting. We could eat less. So every study from yeasts to primates to human beings shows that calorie restriction, slows down our pace of aging and is really good for us and reduces anti-inflammation. But we cut out the junk food, not the protein. If you're eating less calories, you increase your protein, you increase your leafy greens and your healthy fats. That's what you want to do. So essentially what we're saying is if you're on a GLP-1, to maintain muscle mass, you've got to increase your level of protein.
Interesting enough, it also seems that if you're on a GLP-1, that your desire or your ability to eat fatty foods and healthily is also dampened, right? Yeah. Because you just don't tolerate it as well. And so too alcohol. Your ability to consume alcohol also gets dampened quite significantly.
And I found that really difficult. I tried a GLP-1 because I've been prescribing it to patients and thought I couldn't prescribe something that I'm not willing to try. And I normally have around 3 eggs for lunch.
Right.
And after my first egg, I was done. I'm like, I really want more, but I can't. It took away the craving. It took away and that bothered me somewhat because then suddenly eating becomes a bit of a chore. I eat this because I know I need to, not because I want
Pleasure.
to. And I have a friend who quite honestly, and I love this honesty about him. He just said, look, I tried a GLP-1, but I love to eat. And it took away my desire to eat. And I don't want to live like that. And so, I eat, and that's what I've chosen to do. So,
what else? You were going to move on to?
I was.
I rudely interrupted you.
No, that's fine. This is what the CEO does. So.
Rudely interrupt.
I think a dietitian is helpful. Someone that really understands you, because there is no one size fits all diet. We need to know that. This whole idea of you are what you eat. No, you are what your body does with what you eat. Hence the chocolate cake reference earlier. So a dietitian's going to really assist you with that. There are healthy ways to eat for you. And then I think finally, think years, not weeks. So a lot of people will start injecting and think, I want to lose weight, and that first month, there's 3 or 4 kilograms that have gone, and man, I really want to think long-term, not short-term gains. And probably most importantly is while you're on this GLP-1, while the food noise is turned down and you have capacity to do other things, to think about other things, set those habits up. We talked about that right in the beginning. Your New Year's resolutions.
Process.
Built around processes and habits. Get the right habits in place. How you eat, how you sleep, how you move, how you connect with other people. Those are the boring basics. Do that right while you have the capacity to.
Where are GLP-1s going? Because you spoke about the anti-inflammatory component. You also mentioned that it acts centrally, that it actually switches off craving centrally, and it works within the brain. You also said that while you give it for a diabetic or you give it for someone who's got insulin resistance, independent of that action, it brings benefits. So where are we going with these GLP-1s? Because you said you took it, weren't completely happy, but it's almost getting into a space where you're wondering if it goes beyond just weight reduction. So where are we heading on this?
I think it's going to go way beyond that. And I think there's lots coming down the drag. There is a pipeline of GLP-1s plus. So what do we combine with these GLP-1s to reduce some of the nausea? That's what GIP is doing. That's tirzepatide is some of that, a dual agonist. But again, the effect on reduction, and you mentioned that briefly, Paul, on alcohol addiction. Could we start treating alcoholism with GLP-1s? Possibly. So there are studies, there is research that's coming down the drag. These are going to be around for a long time, and it's worth staying up to date on the latest science. And also, that's a great point. Please don't get your information on TikTok or Insta, or get your information from a reliable source, a podcast like this, or experts that you trust. That's where you learn about what's happening in the GLP-1 space, not the latest craze from TikTok.
Microdosing, low dosing,
remains to be seen. That's I haven't read any studies that have shown benefits in that. I think they're emerging and people are experimenting. That's not how they've been designed. It's not how they are, developed. And the nature of microdosing, I'm not sure it makes a lot of sense, because remember, you want to amplify that biological signal for longer. You get that in a weekly dose. Are you going to get the same by giving less, more frequently? So I think the jury is out on microdosing. Again, not for, not against, just waiting for the science.
So if you're listening to this podcast and you've had a curiosity around the GLP-1s and you've been thinking, should I not take it? Who is the right patient to be putting their hand up for a GLP-1? Obviously, they have to go and get consultation with their doctor. But as they're thinking about it, who should be taking this one step further forward?
I think the ideal patient for a GLP-1, and that's such a great question, Paul, is an individual who has battled with being overweight. Not through lack of trying, not through lack of dieting and trying to figure out how I can lose weight because it is a disease and because it negatively affects my health. An individual who really is committed to losing weight but has tried everything and failed, not that you're a failure, it's your biology that counts against you. There's so much that's kind of, the systems around you are failing you. That's the individual that would do really well on a GLP-1. If you're someone who constantly thinks about food, you get up in the mornings and what am I going to have for breakfast? Have I prepared anything for dinner? If you think that's normal, that's not normal. And a GLP-1 will turn that noise down, will give you space to think about things other than food. If that's something that you kind of go, yes, Michael, that's me. I can't stop thinking about food 24/7. If that's you, GLP-1s would be super helpful.
And you've tried alternate opportunities, right? You've looked at diets, you've looked at exercise, and you're not making progress.
And that's, can I maybe touch on that, Paul? That's so true. What a GLP-1, the danger of a GLP-1 is I inject and I just sit back and let it happen. No. Remember, a GLP-1 doesn't do the work for you, it allows you to do the work easier. So if GLP-1s are beyond your ability to afford, if they take away your love of eating, whatever your reason for not doing a GLP-1, that doesn't mean you have no options. The boring basics still work. If you're sleeping less than 5 hours a night, your hormones leptin and ghrelin go haywire. Science shows that if you've slept less than 5 hours, you wake up the next day and you can consume on average 300 more calories than you normally would have in highly processed foods. So one of the most effective ways of reducing your calorie intake is just sleeping 7 hours minimum. That's sleep, exercise, what you eat, time spent with family and friends, people that build into your life, that hold you accountable. Those all are key when it comes to reducing the risks of obesity and overweightness in your life.
For me, I think one of the most powerful narratives you built over the last hour is that obesity is actually not just about willpower. It's not about that you failed or you lack the skills or you lack the that integrity to see it through, but rather it may be something very unique to you. Your hormone environment, your concomitant diseases you may be living with, your age. All these factors come into play, and therefore weight loss isn't something only for the people that have the strength and the will and the determination to do it. But there are other methods available that if you choose to go that road and you do it sensibly with the right medical support, a GLP-1 could form that base for you.
Absolutely.
That you could then, with the noise levels down, with the weight off, start building. You mentioned improvement in strength training, better selection around food, upping my protein, reducing my carbs, checking in on my sleep, making sure that that my cognitive wealth is also being taken care of, that I'm building a better self-esteem around myself as I enter into this new world. Because I understand, Michael, that if I stop taking the GLP-1 and I haven't built these systems, the weight's coming back.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe a closing thought on that. Again, maybe an overshare, about my sweet tooth, but my DNA points to the fact that weight loss will be difficult for me and weight gain very easy. I have the FTO gene allele. They often call that the obesity gene. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Of all the things you pass down, you give me the obesity gene. And I remember at first reading that, feeling so disheartened because my genetics, I'm going to get fat. That's my DNA is my destiny. Plopped on a couch and started opening a bag of crisps and just eating because I'm going to get fat. But the truth is that our behavior can turn off bad genes. So behavior trumps biology. So my DNA is not my destiny. If I'm active on a daily basis, I can turn off that FTO gene alone and no longer susceptible to easy gain. And here's the ratio. And then let me land that, Paul. When it comes to genetics, there's nothing you can do about your genetics. That's your blueprint. But your epigenetics, how those genes are expressed, how your lifestyle impacts how those genes are expressed, that makes a huge difference. And the ratio when it comes to lifespan and health span, 7% genetics, 93% epigenetics.
Fascinating.
We started by saying, guys, you
That's
have
hope.
agency over your health. That's hope.
That's hope.
93%
Yeah.
of that is up to you.
So when you stand in January and you think, okay, I've got a new year to reset myself, leave my old behind, and I'm going to recreate a new me, you've actually got a lot backing you.
Absolutely.
You got how much? 93%.
93% of your health.
In your favor.
Yeah.
And in your control.
Yeah.
Only 7% of your mom and dad are going to influence you.
Yeah.
That's a very empowering statement that you leave us with. In other words, if you set up the right process, the right systems, the right support, anything is possible in that year. Yeah. You asked me not to ask you what your new resolution is. And I accept that. And you said that's about agency. But maybe you can tell me, what do you do to empower that 93 and diminish the 7%? What do you do? What are your life hacks?
So I'll tell you what I do on the 2nd of January, 1st of January, is I ask myself this question. Not what I want to do, who do I want to be?
Mm.
And based on who I want to be, I then look at my calendar and say, okay, so I want to be a better dad, which means I'm putting in time with my kids, priority. I want to be a better husband. How can I be a better husband to my wife? I want to be a better leader. I want to run a business that drives human flourishing at its core. What does that require? And so for me, my New Year's resolutions are about who do I want to be and how that plays out.
Interesting, you tie it back to the calendar, which is your time. And the greatest thing we can do to pursue something we love is give it time.
Absolutely.
So you spoke about the fact that if you want to be a greater husband, then the critical nature of giving time to your wife or time to your children. Yeah. So I think that is a very powerful analogy as well.
Well, I mean, time's the one thing you can't bank, you can't share, you can't pass on. You know, it's just, it's
a currency that diminishes.
The current currency,
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Paul, thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.
This has been such a treat. So good that I didn't even take a sip of my coffee, and I'm a massive coffee fan. So that says something about the content of the questions and the conversation.
I was worried that you're waiting for a spoon of sugar.
I've shared too much.